Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with Kathy and me. And we're going to talk about One Piece, the live action Netflix One Piece, which I think is getting some buzz out there among the One Piece fan base.
And we're new to One Piece. We just started watching the anime, so we're kind of watching this on parallel tracks. So we'd started watching it, and then the live action, because we saw the trailer for the live action, and so we were very excited about it. I wanted to check into it. So we're newbies to the anime, and then we're watching the live action without knowing a lot. So there's not a lot of spoilers, so we don't really know a lot about what's about to happen or anything, major in the super, future. But it was interesting for us because we were so buried in these new episodes and like, oh my God, this stuff is so great. And now we get to see the live action so quickly.
Yeah, we kind of crash binged on the anime, I think. I went pretty far into it. And so and I feel sort of familiar with the world now. So when I started watching the live action thing, I was having those moments of like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, there's so-and-so. This is that thing. And you're putting all these little pieces together that don't really fall into the story until later. And so it is beneficial. It doesn't hurt anything to watch the anime first or just, watch the live action show first and then watch the anime. I don't know. It depends on where you are, because each one of them is such an investment, especially the anime. There's 75 million episodes, I think.
But I think too, because a lot of people have this anime in such high esteem, and it's informed their childhood, and they're very attached and very nostalgic. It's hard to see that turned into live action because it's going to be different. So we are loving it, but we don't have that yet. So I think we're a little more forgiving for anything we might see in live action that some people might call out, which I'm interested in hearing what people think is working or not working. Because to me, I think it worked. I really like it. I think it's really fun.
I love it. I think they're doing an amazing job of transferring the feel and the kind of the vibe and the weirdness of the anime into live action, which is not an easy thing to do because when you get into production design, I've worked on so many movies and shows where the production design, the pre-production, where you're literally thinking, how is the show going to look? How is this movie going to look? Those are the important first questions that you ask. And when you do something like a superhero show or something, there's all these questions about the balance of in the work that I do. One of the first questions that we ask is, what is the balance between reality and coolness? Which is with what I do, people say, okay, lean more towards coolness. And so I know, okay, I'm going to make this look really cool, and it's not going to be totally realistic. But then some people are like, no, I want it to be totally realistic. So then I know it's not going to look cool. It's going to look like a real thing. So in this, I can tell that they had long discussions about how far to push things and how much to match the anime and how much they're going to make things look just like the anime or kind of like the anime or suggest the anime. There's a fine line between that kind of thing working and absolutely failing. And I think they really did an amazing job. People might not even notice it with a show like this. It might just seem like, oh, it's a crazy world with cool looking things. But there is a lot of work that went into this show as far as balancing the look without going overboard. I mean, going overboard in a cool way, but not taking that extra step into that's stupid,
That's right. Exactly. And because I like to talk about the balance between the anime and the episode, but I do want to approach the series, the live action, on its own merits, even though it'll be tempting to compare them side by side and go, this is how this was handled or not. I try to resist that because I feel like very creative people had to make decisions on how to make this feel real. And the animation is so over the top because it can be, and because it should be, because that was its artistic, design. But if you did that in live action, it would be so repellently obnoxious. So what I thought was funny, at first I was like, it seems so toned down. Like,
Yes.
everybody seems so much quieter than the anime was like, "Ah!" Like, lots of yelling,
Yeah, Luffy talks the whole time, everything he says.
oh my god, I know, it's just crazy. So, at first, I was kinda like, "It seems so low key," but then as you let yourself get into it, you realize grounding it like they did makes you feel invested in the characters and not tempted to compare it scene for scene to the animation because it's its own thing. So even though it is inspired and it is One Piece, I really like it because I'm really trying not to attach the anime to it. So
That's a good
I feel like
idea.
it leans more towards kind of almost Game of Thrones because it's kind of
Yes.
misty and golden and kind of gritty. Like I was expecting something kind of James Gunn, the kind of superhero, like wild and loud and funny, but it's not really. It's like they're sort of in a way leaning into the more serious side, I think, of One Piece,
Yes.
even though there's tons of humor. But I do feel like it was leaning more toward keeping it real and messagey, which I think is smart. So
Yeah.
where do we begin?
I think that is the best way to look at this when we go forward through these is let's judge it on its own merits rather than oh that was not quite like the anime or
Yeah,
that was 4.8% like the anime and
yeah,
it's like the anime is this and this show is something
yeah,
else.
exactly.
So
So
that's the best
I
way to
am
approach it.
exactly, and I feel like the cast, as we get into it, I just think Luffy is so perfectly cast. I don't think he could
Yes.
have found a more perfect actor.
Yeah.
He looks like him. He's adorable. He's got an incredible smile. Like the smile is the thing. The only
Yeah.
thing I miss, and I'll just only thing I compare to anime, they don't have the fun giggle. He always had that really fun giggle that he did all the time. He doesn't do that at all. Like there's none of that. So maybe that would be maybe they tried it and it just was not because he always
Yeah.
had that like, yeah. And I always really liked that. But here he has a smile. And he's a little more realistic, a little more serious Luffy in a way, but not too
Right.
serious.
But like you said, again, we're comparing. But
Exactly.
like you said, those little things, I'll bet you're absolutely right that they went through tests. They did screen
Mm,
tests. They did,
they were like, yeah,
read throughs, table reads. A table read is when the actors on a show all get together
yeah,
usually at a table, sometimes on a set
yeah,
but sometimes at a table in a conference room in the production offices, and the actors will all sit around and they will all hold their script or their pages
exactly.
and they will go through and they'll say, "Oh, look out! Here he comes!" And then the next actor will go, "Wait, get out of the way! No!" And they do
Yeah,
their character, and
yeah.
that's where the character is
Start
developed. And
figuring it out.
I'll bet
Yeah.
you're right. The director, the writer, producers are sitting there, and I'll bet they tried the giggle, and they were like, he seems a little too
Mm.
old to be giggling like that,
Yeah,
or
it's true.
it kind of reduces the reality and the truth of his character.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're exactly right. They probably it was probably an issue.
Well, at the same time, I think these 2 things can exist separately. I don't think
Yeah,
you have to compare them. I think it's a mistake to compare them in a way too
yeah.
intricately. I mean, a little bit of it because,
It's fun to
I love
compare
seeing
them,
yeah, it
and
is. A little bit because I love seeing how they envision live action, like how he looks in the show, and, I love that he changed his wardrobe a little bit throughout some
yeah,
episodes. I thought that was really smart. I like, how they envisioned, each character a little differently because when you're seeing a person with these, like, you know, the marine with
right.
the
With the
silver
metal
thing.
jaw.
Yeah, it wasn't really that even that it just was a given in the animation, but when you see it in real life, you're like, "What the?" But so
It's
they had to keep
hard.
it a little quieter, toned down, but just creepy, like
Yeah.
so that
It's
that
hard to
will
make stuff like that work without it
yeah,
drawing your attention away from the actor whose face is doing
exactly.
the acting, and also without undermining the character, because that
Yeah,
actor, I'm sure when he found out about this facial application, he was like, "Oh no, this is gonna take all the attention away from my
yeah,
eyes, and
yeah,
I'm gonna have to act, times 9
yeah,
to act past this facial thing." There's a lot of people. I worked on some sci-fi TV shows where people would be cast as aliens, and then they found out they had to wear these rubber appliances, and they're
yeah.
like, "No, that's the
No.
curse.
Yeah,
First of
because
all,
then how
nobody's
do you
going to
act?
recognize me.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to want to hire me because of this show because they're not going to realize I was in it because I had all this rubber stuff on my face." And
Right.
so actors don't generally like to act with a bunch of stuff on their face.
It's not
So you
fun.
really have
But
to
they kept it minimal. It worked. You
it
saw just
works.
enough. Yeah.
he was broad enough in his characterization of that character that he worked it and he made it work,
Yeah,
and he put that
that's right.
draw forward,
That's
and
right.
he went with it.
Yeah, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So,
Yes, we
one
are.
thing I love opening scene, One Piece, live action, we got Luffy on his little boat, and it
Yes.
doesn't look great. So things it looks like he's kinda sinking. He's starting to but I love he's breaking the fourth wall and he's talking to us. He's telling us what's
Yeah.
going on. He's explaining what's happening. I love that. I was like, "Wow, it's really cool to breaking fourth wall. That's a cool idea." Then they turn the camera and you see there's this weird looking bird with look like a messenger
Yeah.
seagull,
He's got a
and he's watching
bag
him.
of
So he's been talking to the bird the whole time, which I thought was a really
yeah.
fun little trick. I thought that was fantastic. So Luffy, who's nothing ever gets to him, he goes, "I have a great idea. I'm gonna put myself in this barrel and we're just gonna float around." And he just falls asleep in the barrel because that's what
Well,
he
his
does.
ship is sinking, his little boat is
Yeah,
sinking,
the
and then
boat sinks.
the only floating thing is his barrel, so
Yeah. I mean,
it's
he's
like his
trying to
first
bail out the
day as a
water, it's
pirate,
not working.
and
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, he's like, I'll just do this." Like, he's
But we
nothing
also see
phases
the,
him.
right. Yeah, it's fine, I have a barrel, I'll
Yeah,
just dump these fish out of it, and I'll get in it, and then
that's right.
but we also get the setup story of
Mm.
the gold,
Yeah, I guess that was actually the opening scene.
the One Piece thing where they
I have to
execute
go
this
right
guy
to
in
Luffy.
yeah,
Okay,
but
yes, the
they
opening scene.
yeah, and it's pretty violent. I mean, like you
Very
said, Game
violent.
of Thrones, it's like that seemed like it reminded me of a Game of Thrones early episode where we
Very.
see somebody executed and it's shocking in a
Yeah.
show like this. There's actually a few moments of shocking violence in this show that you don't expect. You
Yeah.
think it's going to be sort of cartoonish, but
It's an interesting balance because
yeah,
they kinda set up like it's gonna be a kids show. Then they have, these beheadings, the guy gets cut in half, like, it was like, "Whoa, whoa," like so I
yeah,
like that they're not shying away from it. They could've cleaned it up, but they didn't
yeah,
because that would be anti what this is about. So, they kept that in because the violence is shocking on the and even in the anime, it's shocking. So, it's like I
yeah,
like that they left it in there, but you're right, that opening scene, which is at the beginning of every episode of One
right.
Piece with that little quick breakdown talking about where his treasure is and getting executed. That's sort of like the opening scene to
At
it.
the beginning, Gold Roger, is executed, and it's
And right when
actually
he's gonna tell him where it was, "My
yeah.
treasure is out there, it will be" dead.
But that sorta it's almost like what's cool about that scene to me is, like, you see all these people, there's, like,
Yeah,
thousands of people down there watching, and all of them seem to kinda know that he is the king of the pirates
yeah.
and that he has the One Piece, and they're all waiting, they're like, "Is he gonna reveal his last
Mhm.
words?"
What is it gonna
And
be?
he says, "Yes, it does exist, and yes, it's out there, and since they're gonna kill me, it's yours if you can find it."
Yeah,
And you see all these cuts, these shots of the people in the audience that are
yeah,
watching his execution, and you see these really cool looking characters. They
yeah,
look totally like anime game, game characters or something, like the
yep.
guy with the cool sideburns and the crazy
Yeah, they
anime
didn't even
hair.
waste the cutaway to crowds, like, they actually spent some time even on these cutaways to the crowd, they created characters, they weren't just random people. It was pretty
Yeah,
funny.
and the idea is that there's tons of people
Yeah.
now who are jumping in ships going out to try to find the One Piece.
I love
It's
where
like
they did execute him and they don't stay, everybody just bails. Pew!
yeah,
They just start
it's like,
running
"Go, go,
out of
go,
the
go."
place, "Gotta go get it," and then the guy who executed him is like, "Oh, maybe that
Yeah.
wasn't a good idea."
Yeah, he's like, "Well, that kind of undermined
I'm sure he
the whole
wanted it.
point."
Mhm.
Yeah, but
So
that but
then we
then
cut. Then we after that scene, now that we've set up that there's a treasure everybody wants,
yeah,
now we cut to Luffy, and now we got him
yeah,
floating around in a barrel.
and his barrel, just like in the anime, gets picked up
Yeah,
by a ship that, there's a battle
perfectly good fish in here.
yeah, a crazy, ocean battle between pirate ships on the high seas, and, they reel in his barrel and throw it down in the cargo hold,
Yep.
and, young, slave, like, chore boy, Kobe,
Mhm.
um, finds Luffy and Luffy sort of inspires him. I mean, everybody knows the story. I don't guess we need to go through the story.
Yeah, it's true.
But Luffy just jumps out of the barrel and becomes this huge inspiration in everybody's
Yeah,
life, and it takes a minute, but people eventually warm up to him, and they
yeah,
realize that he's kind of this, he's kind of this messenger of goodwill type of character
yeah.
that is I mean, there's nothing jerky about him. He is honest, and he's a loyal friend, and he
Mhm.
seems to really care about you. You know, he's a great
Yeah,
character. It's a cool idea for a character. He's not
yeah,
this dark, sinister,
yeah,
brooding type of hero character. He's
yeah.
just like, and I have a theory, and to say it right here in the first episode review, to
Knowing
me,
nothing about One Piece, Burke has a theory.
I do. I already have a theory.
Okay.
I've watched, I've watched this much of the anime, and I've watched this much of the TV series, and I already have a theory, and I think, I mean, I might as well be right. Who knows? I think that this story is told from the perspective of a child who is playing make believe. It's like this comes from a kid's imagination, the whole world, and
Mm,
the whole all the aspects of how people relate to each other, and it's all like a child's idea of those things. Like whenever you see the Marines or whatever, it's like the Marines, they don't really define what the Marines do or anything. They just wear hats that say Marines, and Kobe says, "I want to be a Marine because they help innocent people."
and they're
And
anti-pirate.
yeah, and then there's
They protect the
pirates and
island from
Marines,
pirates.
good guys and bad guys. And it just seems to me to be like a world of make believe, which I think is what makes it so great.
That's true. It's the thing that I the only thing I would say to that is that on the surface, it does seem like it's told like from a childlike point of view, but underneath, very adult themes, very lots of like things I don't think children would even understand about loss and bullying and abuse and
Yeah, that
all
comes
of those
into
things.
it for sure.
So there's a lot of those little themes. That's what's so fun about it is that it has this sort of childlike quality, but then it has this really deep, emotional current through it that brings in more than you expect. And that I think
Right.
that's what I really like about it is that you are in a way always caught off guard because you keep expecting it to be this one thing and it isn't this one piece thing. So
Yeah.
that's what I really liked about it. So they have Kobe is clearly not a big, strong person. He's a little skinny guy. He's got pink hair. He's
Right.
got these big
It's
glasses,
got pink
super
hair.
nerd. He's kind of like, he's like Harry Potter looking,
Yeah.
but he really wants to be a tough guy. And he's constantly abused and harassed by everyone on the pirate ship, especially the captain, Alvida. She was terrible person.
Yeah.
Just, they don't make her quite as terrible in this. I mean, she just seems like she's just a bull, like a strong woman who's just an
She's got a
asshole, but not,
club
yeah,
that she beats people to death with.
right. But in the anime, she was almost looked like just yeah, just anyway, the
It's
design
very
was very
broadly drawn.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just blah. But they dispatch her pretty quickly, so we move on from that. Thank goodness, so we don't have to stay with that very long. So I enjoyed that they then we're starting to meet new characters, which I was really looking forward to, is seeing the new characters come in, like
Yeah.
the new his crew
His
as Luffy's
crew.
looking for people. So he does convince Kobe to go with him, which was hilarious. He goes, "Come on with me," and it's like, "How?" It's like this little dinky boat again. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we don't want this. And then we encounter Zoro next, I think, right at the bar.
Well, Kobe wants to be a Marine, so they go
Yeah.
to the island. They go to Shell's Island where the Marine base is,
Yep.
because Kobe is like, I want to join the Marines, and Luffy is like, well, I need a
Let's
map
do
that they
it.
have there, so let's go there, and I'll somehow get in there, and I'll get a map from them, and you can join the Marines. And it's like total kid,
I
and
love his
even
idealism. So funny. I want to be a pirate. What do you need? I need a boat. I need a crew. I need a map. I need. Well, you're
yeah,
okay. You need a lot.
and his ideas, his form of thinking is so
Yeah.
childlike. I love
Yeah.
the scene in the bar where they go to the inn to eat food, and they're just eating and eating. Luffy's always hungry, but at one point he's like, okay, we got to make a plan. Maybe I need to get into the base. Maybe I can fly in, like I can grab onto a bird. And the bird and Kobe is like, that's a terrible idea. It's like,
Terrible plan.
what the hell? Who are you?
Oh,
What have I
it's
gotten
so
myself
funny.
involved with here? But that's Luffy. He's like, yeah, I could
Yeah.
just grab onto a bird, and
You
the
just gotta
bird
say
could
no to
fly
him.
me into that's what I love
Exactly.
about the show.
I know, it's so silly. And they don't hold back on the stretchy aspect of him at all. They
Right.
go right into it. Like, they don't make you wait for it. They just have that big fight on Alvina's ship, and you also realize, when he's shot, the bullets pop back out of him. It's like,
Yeah.
and then he's starting to use this big, crazy stretchy arm, and he
Yeah.
thinks, he's showing, Kobe like, oh yeah, I'm made of rubber.
Right.
Everybody's like, what the
What
fuck?
kind of monster
So
are you?
I love that. So they don't make you wait. They get you right into it. It's like,
Right.
no waiting. And then we get, like you said, we go to Shell Town, and we get to meet Zoro, who's in the bar. Now they cover a few storylines here that were handled differently in the anime, which we don't need to get into, but
Yeah.
they do.
We
But
meet Zoro lighting a candle at a shrine, and he's
yeah,
approached by the by this secret assassin organization
yeah,
who has been following him and appreciates his skill as an assassin. And Zoro is like, I don't want to join. I've got my own thing going. He
yeah.
keeps saying that, I got my own. He's a loner, and so, and then the other guy says, well, if you refuse our offer, that means you forfeit your life. And Zoro ends up having to fight him to the death.
Yep.
And then he puts the guy's defeated body fragments into a
Cuts him in
bag.
half.
Cuts him in half.
He's carrying around a bag, and they takes it to a bar with the body kind of sticking out of it, just puts it on a chair, sits there.
And
No one even questions it.
Well, that's the Marine town. That's where you take your
I love it.
dispatched pirates to get your bounty, So
Yeah,
he's
but
bringing him in for the bounty. And then,
and we also get
unfortunately,
to meet Nami there too, or Nomi. Is it Nami? Nami.
yeah, we meet her in
She's
her
in the bar.
separate story. But we meet her before that when she's like about to die, and she's on this little boat, and some
Oh yeah, that's
little
right.
pirate ship comes up, and she's like,
No, I'm so
help
helpless.
me. They attacked me and left me for dead. And these two
And they're all
pirates
like,
are like,
easy pickings.
and she's like covering up her treasure. She's like, oh
No,
no, don't take it. It's all I
I'm just
have.
a girl.
So they jump on the boat and they open it up, and of course it's empty, and they turn around and she's sailing away on their boat. She's like, thanks for the boat, guys.
That was excellent.
And they're like, arr! But it's like it's so funny. That's a perfect way to meet her, because that's what she does. She's a thief.
She's a scammer. Yep, she's a thief, and she uses her womanhood to like trick men into disarming them and underestimating her at every turn.
Right.
And so she's always doing that, which is really funny because that's kind of her strength, is people don't really notice.
Yeah,
like,
she kind of turns it around, and she pretends like she's weak or something, and then that's where she, they all sort of converge in this inn on Shell's Island, and that's where they first see Zoro, and they first and Luffy notices her kind of scamming guys for drinks for some reason, but then the son of this guy comes in who is like, I think we talked about this before we were taping this. He looks like the absolute embodiment of an anime drawing. This guy,
so good.
Yeah,
Scott totally steals it, and that's hard to do. I mean, guy was amazing.
He totally steals it, but the styling is cool. His hair looks great. His costuming is really cool. Yeah. But he does these great poses, like the way he stands and the way he delivers his lines, and
big mouth,
and his great, he's just teeth. Yeah, he's very cool, and he plays. I can't remember the character's name, unfortunately. What is the character's name? He's the son of Captain Morgan, Axe Hand Morgan. Yeah. Also Metal Jaw. They could have called him Metal Jaw Morgan too, but
that's true.
He's the son. He's kind of the nepotism thing where you can tell that he thinks he's the king of the island because my father runs the Marines, and
that's right.
So he, that's where he encounters Zoro, and and the guy's being a real jerk to this little girl that's in there who's clearly kind of enamored by Zoro, and they end up fighting, and Zoro sort of proves what a great fighter he is, and Luffy is like,
so I could use a guy like that.
And then he notices that what's her name? Nami has we're still so new at this.
I know. Nami I can't pronounce anything.
She's tricked this guy. She's like looking for a guy. She's like, no, you're too tall.
And well, that's what was so funny. She's sitting there kind of leaning in the bar, and a guy comes with, hey, can I buy you a drink? She's like, too tall. And she just walks away, and you're like, what was that? And she goes over to
Yeah,
this totally nerdy, little squirrely guy who's kinda short, and she's always like,
about her size.
"Hi." Yes, exactly, then you find out why.
So she's doing some underhanded thing where she needs a Marine's
Yeah,
uniform, and Luffy is watching all this stuff happening, and he's thinking, "Wow, I need both of them for my
yeah,
crew," you know? So
mhm,
it's kinda this first episode is sort of the
yeah,
formation of the
mhm,
core the trio, the core
yeah,
trio. We still have a few more to go, but, um, this
yeah.
is like the primary first 3 of the crew,
And
and,
overall, like, I love the set design, I thought was very nice and minimal, it's not overdone, you feel like you're kind of in it, they don't try and overplay anything, it's just, like, rustic, it feels lived in, I feel like they belonged in it, it wasn't like they stood out from, like, this, certain kinda set, it all felt really, well designed, and
yeah,
I'm really liking the characters, I love that the actor who plays Zoro, what's his name, Makanu or whatever his name is, he,
yeah,
has this kinda quietness about him that's nice, and he has this kinda honor, but then there's that little tiny sly bit of humor that comes out sometimes, so
yeah,
you're kinda seeing inside this character a little bit, I really like that. Um, and again, Aidan Scott, who kills it as the Marine's son,
yeah,
the Marine main guy's son, and he was really, really funny. But overall, I mean, the show is carried by Luffy, that actor is so great, he's just got this sort of wide-eyed, optimism I just loved, and just really fun first episode. I was like, I watched it. I was kind of like hoping, like, oh god, I hope it's good because I love the show and everybody wants it to be good. And I'm like, hey, I'm liking it.
yeah, I was really kind of
We're
torn
new, but
between imagining how many ways it could fail, you know?
yeah,
It could be too sappy, it could be too cloying and too ridiculous. It
yeah,
could have had a sense of not taking the show seriously or
yeah,
not taking the concept seriously. It absolutely takes the
it
concept
did.
seriously. The acting in this is very strong. There are moments in
Mhm.
this where you get tears in
Yeah,
your eyes. You love
yeah,
these characters and you're like, "Wow, that's so
so good.
cute." In a couple of scenes where you see how people get their get their personalities and develop their persona,
Yeah,
and but the first episode goes through the whole process of, I think, just introducing the character. The first episode is called Romance Dawn. um that they of course Zoro gets sentenced to hang out in they're torturing the poor guy, and Luffy
yeah,
frees him. uh, Zoro is about to just walk out when
yeah,
Nami and Luffy are fighting with the Marines, but then he looks back and you
yeah,
realize, okay, this heartless, pirate killer actually does have a heart or something. Maybe there's something salvageable in there.
yeah.
So he goes and helps them, and then they have stolen the map, and
Mhm.
so he ends up picking up this giant safe and bringing it, and they end up sort of,
Yeah.
kind of, by necessity, become a crew, even though every time
Mhm.
Luffy says, "My crew," they're like, "We're not your crew."
We're not. Don't even think about it. I know, and I also love the thing, I mean, we're gonna get into, episode 2 also, be sure and watch that, but I like the overarching idea of the wanted posters. So we
Yes.
see them, and now they're gonna carry them through, like, we start seeing when they encounter somebody, we get a big "wanted,"
Yeah.
so we figure out who they are, and then the thing kinda burns away. That's a cool effect
I love the
because
way
it
the
brings you back
actor
to it.
moves it out of the way or
Yeah, it's like,
slices
"Get off
it
my
out of
face."
the way and, like, pushes it
So
out. They
it's
use
really cute.
their characteristic weapon to get rid of the wanted poster.
Exactly, it was kind of a cool thing.
It's very
And,
nicely done, very carefully produced.
so they say I was doing some research just a little bit, so because I wanna make sure, I mean, a little bit, besides knowing how to pronounce anyone's name.
Right.
Um, I noticed this little tidbit. Tell me what you guys think when it says Zoro's introduction with Mr. Seven is a scene that the manga and anime reference, uh, never actually depicts, so we're seeing it for the first time. It's a small detail, but one
Um,
that enlarges the scope. This is from Vulture. Enlarges the scope of the story by teasing what's to come and what else is out there. So that's kind of a little
yeah.
detail I didn't know about because I wasn't sure who that is. And, and I didn't know to compare it to manga and anime. So let us know your thoughts about that little tidbit and what you thought when you saw that. But otherwise, be sure and join us in our episode 2 as we stumble through in our first viewings and being very excited about this. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of maybe interesting to see how wrong we are about a lot of things about this.
Like,
I mean, if you're a
even something we
longtime
just
fan,
watched.
hopefully if you're a longtime fan, you're not watching this going, "No, shut up, you
It's like,
guys, you don't
"God, you
know what
guys are
you're
so
seeing."
stupid." No. Just imagine this is like little children, and we're just learning. We're brand new. We're newly born One Piece fans. So that's what's kind of fun again. We're new to the anime. We're new to this. So we're seeing
Yeah.
this with brand new eyes. So it's an adventure for us just to have both of them going together, which is also very confusing.
But
So
I'm really liking it. That's the thing
I am
is
too.
I'm really enjoying it.
It's
I think
unique.
it's
I like it.
written in a way that is it's like you know, the word magical obviously, but it is kind of a magical world, you know, there's these things that, like I don't know if it ever comes into the anime, but they use snails to communicate
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't is that part of the anime
I don't
eventually? I
know.
haven't seen that yet in the
I don't
anime.
know if you've seen that. That was cool. Like, you put the snail in your ear, and then he had the phone. It was but yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna get into that. We'll
and the
get
gum
into that in
comes
our
fruit,
next
you know, when
review.
you eat it, you turn into rubber or
Yeah,
something, and then the
yeah,
gods of the sea reject you, so suddenly you're unable to function in seawater. You lose your
yeah,
powers and all
that's
that.
right.
There's a lot of magical stuff. You mentioned Harry Potter earlier,
Yeah,
and, it does have kind of a Harry Potter vibe because you're in
great.
this world of, a unique
That's right.
created a completely fabricated world
That's right.
with new rules and things you have to learn,
Mhm.
which is always kind of fun about fantasy stories.
That's right. Alright. So, catch up with us. I know we're kinda stumbling around, but we're
Yeah.
enjoying this. We're not getting it right, but we will by the end of it. Alright, see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.